It was a pretty basic night. It was our second meeting in the month of August, and we continued many matters that we had talked about in the previous meetings. So we started out and we recognized the Honey and Path 8 and under All-Star baseball team, and just a tremendous group of kids who have been very successful. A lot of parents were here tonight with coaches. You could tell there was a lot of love and affection for this team and the accomplishments they've had. So that was a very encouraging way to start off the council meeting. After that, we went into our regular meeting where we called the meeting to order and went straight into agenda items. Councilman Floyd, who represents District 2, started off with sort of a recap of what was going on in her district. And there were some positive things from the Broadway Lake Family Day, where I believe they were having cardboard boat races, to a ski show, to also where it looks like there might be a sheriff's substation in Watson Village serving the south end of the city in the Homeland Park area. So very positive things coming out of that, and she's definitely a passionate advocate for her district. From there, we went into third reading, and these are items that we've already gone through a couple times in the preceding meetings. We went into an item where we were redefining zoning groups. We have citizen advisory zoning groups who help give us a citizen perspective on what's going on. Well, sometimes it's cumbersome. These are volunteers, so we reorganized how those groups met so they wouldn't have to meet as much, but when they did meet, it was substantial in nature, and because we wanted to be cognizant of the time that they were giving. From there, we had third reading on an item that we talked about before, and that's the measurement or metrics we use to determine if you get a speed bump. Many people want a speed bump in their neighborhood, and this is an item that allowed us to evaluate certain situations and potentially be able to do speed bumps more. And in the past, some folks had been denied speed bumps, and it was more the letter of the ordinance, and we wanted to make sure that we were meeting the requirement. In second reading, we actually took up a zoning item that we talked about last week. And this is always encouraging to me. Last week we had a developer that come forward. He wanted to do a project. We had some citizens that came forward with serious concerns. We voted to move it forward so that they could meet and hopefully reconcile. It looks like that is potentially happening. Citizens stood up, the developer stood up. They said they had a great meeting, that they had come to some agreements, and they jointly asked us to table it while they worked out matters and kept talking, and they wanted to come forward at a later date. So that's always a great thing to hear from council, and it's citizen involvement, it's people talking, it's people working out issues. From there, we went into a basic accounting matter where we looked at capitalization requirements, and this was a follow-up to recommendations that we had from previous meetings. Then we talked about an exciting project that we referenced last time, and that's a large apartment complex that's going to go in the Pendleton, South Carolina area. And this is where the county is working with the town of Pendleton on a $31 million project to offer housing that's much needed in the area, especially with industry like Arthrex going in. And so this was a positive economic development project. Sometimes we have questions on how it's structured or why we're doing it a certain way, but I feel like everybody on council agreed that it was a positive impact to the Pendleton community and something that we were definitely willing to work with Pendleton, the town, on.
It's going to help the town, the school district 4, and he said eventually over time it's billions of dollars in tax money coming into the county, Pendleton, and the school.
Yes, and that's something that I stress sometimes is the school district, the cities, the towns, the county, we don't really operate independent of each other. We have an overlay of each other. So when a positive project happens in any one of them, it benefits all of us. And so that project's going to take a lot of revenue back to the school district. It's also going to provide housing for workforce that's going in there. And it's a piece of land that without this project would have never brought the county the revenues that it's going to bring now. So over a 20-year period, it's going to have millions of dollars of benefit. So it's a positive thing that's going on in our county, and a credit to our economic development group. From there, we updated and moved along a brownfield loan. This is something we talked about last time at the Toxaway mill site and also the Pelzer lower mill site. we talked about before, some of these places have fond memories, but they've become eyesores. And this is a federal loan program that allows us to get money almost interest-free. They actually forgive part of the loan so that we can clean up these areas, potentially make them usable for development, but also have green space for our communities there. From there, we also talked about the sale of the TTI Pickens building. And we obtained this building when the county went into a project to take over the TTI building on 28 Bypass. So we've sold that to a private entity, and we're going through the procedural methods to finish that, and it's a good deal for the county. From there, we took into road acceptance, and the first thing we asked the road department, does this meet county requirements? And they came back and said it is, and so we took in 2 roads from there. From there, we heard from Chairwoman Wilson in regards to the Planning and Public Works Committee. And in zoned residential areas in the county, sometimes people will run businesses out of them. I'm not talking about your small home business, but maybe something large that affects the neighbors. She's been working with the planning department and in the planning commission in a way to, how can we make sure that people don't do something from a noise standpoint, from a sight standpoint, that's so egregious it's affecting the ability of their neighbors to have quiet enjoyment. So there was discussion about that tonight. I think it's going to go back to the planning department for different wording. It may go to the planning commission for more discussion. But it's an item we've been discussing about for many months, and people believe that something should happen. But anytime you do something like this, you want to make sure that the way it's worded is correct, because we never want to unintentionally take in someone who's doing the right thing. From there, we also talked about some green development measures. And this would be optional measures that a developer could create more green space in the county when they do a subdivision. So right now we have certain requirements that if you put houses on a piece of property, they have to have certain size lots. Well, this would be an additional option that the developer could choose to do, or the individual developing property could choose to do, to have more green space and have an incentive to do so. A lot of positive talk about that. What they're going to probably do is get developer input, they're going to get builders input. They're also going to talk to the planning commission more, but it was a positive proposal that was put forward from discussion. So from there, we also went into executive session where we talked about some contractual matters. And then we did appointments to the library board and the planning commission. At the end of that, we ended, like we usually do, with requests to council and comments from council. So a whole host of items were allocated from the individual districts to positive things that were going on. Some of it recreational, some of it to the local towns or municipalities that a council member represents. And then we ended the night with remarks from council where most people want to compliment staff who's done a good job in a certain area, or point out something in the meeting that they wanted to make clarification. But overall, it was a pretty straightforward night. I think the discussion was positive. We're going into the fall with a lot of activity going on, and we look forward to more community involvement, as I know a lot of council members are having meetings around the district. But even if they're not having a meeting, whether it's email, social media, or calling, I know the council members I work with, and myself included, always enjoy hearing from the citizens.